what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
We'll try not to like too much talk over each other, but again, we are girls and we are
Agree to disagree.
okay,
Moving on.
well, the makeup bottle. It's like a cracked out T-bird from Greece.
Yeah.
You know, she's got that black hair. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Chick Chat. It is the episode everyone's been talking about. It is finally here. It's time to do it. We've been talking about it for months now. We've been prepping you guys, and now I have Janette here with me, as always, because you've been involved in the build-up, too.
I have, yeah.
It's 50 Shades of Grey Day.
It is.
All right, so...
Wait a minute. That's what we're talking about?
Right.
I watched the wrong movie last night.
Here's the spoiler, everyone.
That explains the black leather.
Yes. We are here today to do this very special episode. This was not going to be your typical Chick Chat. We are not going to have our this or that. We're not going to talk about Prince Harry, unfortunately. We're
I have some thoughts I could share if you'd like to jump into that, though. So.
You guys are welcome to stick around if we do another one.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Just letting you know. Prepping everyone that's listening for their normal Chick Chat fix, this is not going to be it. But we promised you that we would review the 50 Shades of Grey movie. We then made I would say a bet, sort of a dare almost.
A threat.
A threat with another one of our podcast, our sister podcast, our brother podcast maybe, here on The Mesh. And it is Footcandle Film Society, guys. Chris and Alan here with us today.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
So they have watched the movie. Janette and I have watched the movie. I am the only person at the table that has read the books. So this should be interesting.
Yes.
Chris is a lover of books, correct?
Absolutely.
Like you read
Absolutely.
books.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you read books that have been turned into movies.
Yep.
Okay. Jeanette reads.
I read.
Okay. You have not read 50 Shades of Grey, but you have read...
Chapter 1.
Yes. So that counts.
That's good.
But you've read Twilight, you've read Divergent stuff, you've read other books that are maybe not considered classical literature, shall we say.
I will agree to that.
Okay. And Alan, I happen to know, does not read at all.
I don't read.
Okay. So... This should be a nice equal balance of...
We have all viewpoints represented.
We have everything. Yeah. So before we get started, again, like I said, you're listening to Chick Chat on themesh.tv. Thanks for tuning in today. And I wanted to let the guys from Footcandle podcast give a little brief intro about Footcandle in case you're not familiar with them. Not saying that our listeners don't listen to you guys. I'm sure a lot of them do. But
I'm sure.
Just letting you know.
In our listenership, I know dwarfs to the mighty giant that is Chick Chat. But for those of you...
Thank you.
But for all of you listening, Footcandle Films, that's our show here on The Mesh where we get together probably a couple times a month and we review both new films. We give some recommendations of films we think you ought to check out online. We also cover a little bit of movie news. There's a little bit of news that we do as well. We're used to this format to some degree. We like to chat. We talk about things. But it's mostly all film related. Right. And we do have a film society in town that screens films for the local community and putting together a film festival this fall. Lots of good film related things. So, to honor that, knowing that this was a film that was number one at the box office for a couple of weeks and got a lot of money, a lot of buzz around it. We figure we got to do our part and we'll
due diligence.
We'll jump in there and watch it and
for the industry,
all for the show. It's for the show.
Right.
Whatever for the show, that's what we'll do.
But you do. I mean, obviously, we're going to know once you start talking about it. But both of you are saying right now you have watched the entire film in its entirety.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know that I got all the way to the end of the credits, but I'm assuming
I did.
I'm assuming there wasn't like a surprise scene at the end of the credits.
No.
Oh, it was huge. It changed the whole dynamic of the movie. That post credit scene.
That would be interesting.
No, but you both have watched it. We're all around the table. Everyone has watched it, right?
You're just not believing I've watched it.
I watched.
You think I went online and read a synopsis of it or something, don't you think
much,
so? No, I did watch it. My wife can prove it. We watched it together.
Did she watch it with you? Okay. And Chris, I know your wife watched it with you, right?
When she heard that I was doing this, she's like, yeah, you're not watching that by yourself. Fair enough. So,
No, my husband was like, "Yeah, you're watching that by
I was about to say,
yourself."
my husband
See, I would
was
have been the
same way.
opposite. I'm like, no, yeah, you go do that. So,
Yeah.
take care.
and to be clear as well, one of the reasons that, in all honesty, the Chick Chat episode may be delayed in talking about this was that Alan and I did agree to do it, but we're like, by the way, that's going to have to be available on iTunes. We're not going to go
Right.
For rental, not
for
purchase.
rental. Right.
We're not buying
Right.
it.
This was not
clarify.
done in the theaters. None of
No.
us went and sat, and in fact, none of us saw it in the theater. I was the first person to bring this up. I'm happy to say I read all the books. I did not go straight to the theater when it opened. I had really no
Why?
desire to see it in the theater.
Okay.
Not because of the reason you think. I honestly think that there was a lot of people out that have not read the books that hear about the movie and are either A, going to be like, pshaw, like I'm totally not going to see that because I, go to Footcandle. Okay. Or
I'm a
there's
civil, well-mannered human being.
right. Or there were going to be the other people that thought they were going to see basically like they were only going to see it because they thought it was like soft porn.
It was like
Gotcha.
9.5 weeks.
And
right.
It did,
So
it
they
did come
thought
out
they were
February 14th, so
It
it's
did.
a Valentine's Day movie.
It
so
did.
there's that.
So
Yeah, because this is a perfect Valentine's Day.
I was gonna say, yeah, it was weird.
so I didn't want somebody sitting beside me basically going just to, get giggly and whatnot. Like, I kind of wanted to say, hey, let's have a screening for the people that had only read the books.
Yeah.
Got you.
And I would go watch it with other people.
So you
that read
wanted a pure audience
I did. I mean,
yeah.
just, I guess, to be fair.
On the comment about the Valentine's Day, it being released on the
Yeah.
Valentine's Day, I always thought that my worst Valentine's Day experience was I took a date in college to go see Silence of the Lambs when it came out Valentine's Day weekend.
Nice.
I thought that was probably the worst thing that you could do on a Valentine's Day weekend. No, I'm actually thinking taking somebody with the way this story panned out in this movie. That may have been the way to go. So that may have been a lesser option. So
Kind of weird that you did that anyway, but thanks for sharing with
that's all
everyone.
right. I'm just letting you know.
You did not marry her, correct?
No, I did not.
Okay.
No.
Shocker.
Didn't go on another date with her either. So.
Well, there we go.
Either a
One and
serial
done.
killer or
My choice of movie seemed to have doomed that relationship. So, yeah.
So I'm going to toss it to you guys real quick because how do you start off your show? Like, how do we start this? How do we review a movie?
I think, we can tell you, and then if you want, we can have the editor dude do it for you. We usually
Play a
intro
clip.
it, and then we actually play like a little bit from the trailer.
Let's do that.
You want to
Please.
do that?
Why
Please.
break with tradition?
All right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So, we're going to get ready to review the film 50 Shades of Grey by director Sam Taylor Johnson. Not that that really matters. Starring
Easy.
Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan.
Mr. Gray will see you now.
What was he like?
He was polite, intense, smart, really intimidating.
I'd like to know more about you.
There's really not much to know about me. Look at me.
I am. I don't do romance. My tastes are very singular. You wouldn't understand.
Enlighten me then.
So, 50 Shades of Grey, we have a story based on a book about a literature student named Anastasia Steele. I'm going to let that name sink in for a little bit. Anastasia Steele, whose life changes forever when she meets a handsome yet tormented billionaire named Christian Grey. They engage into a relationship, a very unique relationship that takes some interesting turns. With that, I want to hear what everybody thought. Mary-Margaret, let me go to you first.
Yep.
You read the book.
Yes.
You have a little bit more of a basis of comparison here. Did this movie do the book justice or not?
No.
No. Okay, good. Moving on.
Next question.
Next question. Why? What was the biggest fault with this movie compared to the book?
Okay, so I think we can all agree, whether you actually have read books of not these books, but any books for any movie, that it's very rare that a movie does justice to a book.
True.
That's how I feel, at least.
In most all cases.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
A book is much more dense. It's got a lot more detail. There's a lot
Absolutely.
more atmosphere to it. You
Yes.
know, a movie is like an hour and a half long.
Right.
So.
This was exactly the case with this. I feel like the detail that was gone into in the book, and as corny as it may seem with this, I mean, this is a film that made a lot of money. So obviously it was produced and directed and everything the same old way that all the other movies you review are.
Sure.
But the character development in the book is a lot more intense than it even skims the surface in the movie.
Well, let me rephrase the question then before I move on to the next for Janette. Knowing the limitations of making a movie and it has to be 2 hours long, do you feel like they did the best they could have done from the book, or could there have been more interesting ways to make this book into a 2-hour movie?
That's for me?
Yeah.
Definitely could have done more.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not just a matter of, well, they did the best they could to make it into a movie. You really felt like there was a lot of stuff that still could have been in there.
Absolutely.
And done differently that it wasn't.
I have perfect examples, and whenever you're ready for them, you just
Yeah, I
tell me.
think we'll get to the examples in a second.
Yes.
So I'm just kind of getting a good feel for the room here. We're
I
early on
have
stage.
thought about this, engaged this a lot, and I've got some stuff ready for you.
So, Janette, you have not read the book other than the first chapter.
First chapter.
So,
Long time
These
ago.
people are.
not knowing
yes.
anything about the rest of the book,
Yeah.
how did you feel about it as a movie on its own merit?
I was really underwhelmed.
Underwhelmed. Why were you underwhelmed?
I felt like knowing that there was a book, I felt like I was missing something. Like there were just scenes thrown together just to say, okay, here, this happens and then this happens. And I'm kind of left going, well, I don't understand why that's happening so quickly.
Okay, all right.
I guess I just felt like the movie was thrown together. It felt thrown together to me.
Maybe it was almost like it was more of a highlights from the book, kind of
Yes,
dumped
like-
together, stitched together without
Yes.
any connective stuff running through it to make it make sense.
Yes, we have to get through the whole book. So here's a couple pieces from chapters 1 and 2, and then we'll cover the next few chapters. And I wasn't given that substance. Like, I needed to know more. And
Because
there were some
are
things
3
mentioned.
books.
Yeah.
3 books, in case everybody doesn't know.
Well, I'm going to ask about that. I assume we don't need to worry about spoilers on this, do we?
No, because I think we've waited long enough. 2, all of us have seen it now, and I prepared Chick Chat people earlier
Yeah.
on, so
We can spoil it.
I think
It's based on such a popular book. It's
Yes.
not like everybody's going into the movie having no idea where it's going to go.
Right.
A lot of people actually know exactly where it's going to go and end. So we can talk about the end a little bit because I've actually got some questions and
Agreed.
thoughts on the end also too. So Janette, underwhelmed.
Underwhelmed.
And Margaret feeling like they missed a lot or missed a big opportunity to adapt the book the
Yes.
same way. Chris,
Yes.
tell me your thoughts on this film. I'm dying to know.
I wanted to really hate this film because, it's just not my cup of tea. I will be honest and say that it is not a horrible film.
Okay.
It's not. The main reason for that is the actress that plays Anastasia Steele. Is that
Dakota
right,
Johnson.
Lester? Dakota Johnson. She makes the movie bearable. Now, I will not say that she gets out of jail card free, like she's totally awesome and like the best thing, but I can see why when the Oscars happened this past year, they picked her. They're like, oh, she was in one of the biggest movies, let's put her as like a presenter. And she was
Right.
there. And I was like, who's this person? And they're like, oh, she's in 50 Shades of Grey. I was like, okay. So I get that, the synergy between trying to do that with the awards. But having seen the movie now, I think she tried her hardest with a really horribly written screenplay. That being said, I have not read the books, but I felt like the whole time I didn't get the relationship at all. I mean, I knew obviously because of all the buzz, I knew what was going to end up happening, but I don't know. I'd like to say the actor with Mr. Grey, what's his name?
Jamie
Dornan.
I'd like to say he's like the worst person I've ever seen act on screen. But I don't know if he, it's like, how can you tell if somebody is just acting like a robot or they are a real robot in real life or they're supposed to be acting like a robot? Like, I expected him at any minute to like start leaking oil or like blow a fuse or something. And she'd be like, oh, that's why you're so weird.
Mr.
Not because
Grey,
you have-
what's going on?
not because you have a horrible past, but because you're actually a robot. You know, I just didn't get him at all. Like the opening scene where you see him and he comes out from behind the desk and she's supposed to be interviewing him. That's how she gets to meet him, and she gets an interview because she's helping her friend out.
For the school paper.
For the school paper, right.
Because that's really easy to just call
Right.
up a multi-billionaire. It's like, I'm doing an article for the school
Well,
paper.
he was going to be their
Can I
speaker
come
at
in?
graduation. Come on, think
Still, that
this
was
through,
kind of
guys.
weak. That was kind of weak, though. So, anyway.
But I like, it was like, is he supposed to be acting really weird? Is he supposed to be acting awkward? Or is he supposed to be acting like an ass? Like, I didn't know, like, how am I supposed to read this dude? And I didn't know if that was because he was a very poor actor or because the screenplay said, act very strange. But, like, strange, but I assume he has to be charismatic because otherwise, why would she be interested in him? Like, I don't understand why anyone would find him the slightest bit interesting, other than the fact he has a lot of money. I mean, yeah, okay, the dude has a lot of money. I get that. And he acts interested in you? Okay. But other than that, he's acting like such a psychopath. Like, why? So I just, and I didn't get it. And that kind of threw me for a loop. But, as far as like the cinematography and, other actors in the movie, Marcia Gay Harden's in it as Christian's mom. Like, yeah, all doing a decent job with what they have to work with. But it was so distracting to me, the character of Christian Grey. And there again, I don't know if it's the actor, the screenplay, or maybe something coming from the book saying, like, this is how this person is supposed to be, and then you eventually get a read on him. I don't know. It made for a very interesting movie-going experience.
Wow.
So that.
Chris has really thought this out.
So,
Yes. Well, he's very passionate about his hatred for Christian Grey, I can see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll get there when we get to the. And I don't want to, but yeah, we'll get. There's something
I agree,
about the
'cause I
ending.
do wanna-
There's something about the ending that.
So you could just almost photocopy Chris's notes because that's exactly what I've got.
Well, do you?
I'll tell you, I didn't think the film was that bad. I just thought it was
The film
okay.
itself, what do you mean? Like the story,
I didn't hate it at all. It was
I
actually
wanted to
watchable.
hate it.
And even Suzanne and I both at the end of it kind of looked at each other like, wasn't that bad. It's like
Suzanne's
not
your
having
wife.
any expectations on it. I expected to go in and hate it. I do think Dakota Johnson was really, really, really good. I think whether or not she was the character from the book,
Right,
I don't know.
right, yeah, yeah.
I have no idea. But playing the character she did, I'm like, I totally bought her character.
Yes.
When Alan and I make this criticism all the time on Footcandle Films, if I've read the book, Alan, as he mentioned, doesn't read, but we say that books
Like
and
we're
movies.
so obvious
me no
about it.
read.
Me no read, me caveman. Books and movies should stand alone on their own 2 feet. If
Yeah.
you make a good book, that's awesome for you. The movie, it shouldn't be so loyal to the book that it suffers. It should be a good movie all on its own. And if it changes things from the book, or if it isn't, so be it. You can be a good movie without being loyal. You can be a good movie and be loyal. There's
Yeah.
several examples you can say, like Harry Potter books. For the most part, pretty loyal, and I think they're pretty decent movies. A movie, the only other one I can think off the top of my head, The Prestige. It was a really good movie with Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. Very loosely based on a book called The Prestige. Both are awesome, but both are very different.
different.
So, you got to kind of come into the movie or the analysis of it with that perspective too.
Yeah.
And I think I would be okay with that. Like, I'm okay with the movie not being exactly the same as the book,
Right.
word for word and whatnot. But this one was close to the movie, but the detail that they left out, I feel like were the wrong things to leave out.
I think
And that was my biggest issue. I had 2 issues with the film, and one of them was Mr. Dornan, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But the second one is just, I thought the screenplay was really sloppy in that you've got an actual decent concept for a relationship and 2 characters, and it was kind of unique and interesting. I didn't know where it was quite going to go all the way through, but yet it would just seem like it was stitched together. Like Janette said, it was almost like just,
it's the highlights reel.
all right, we know we got to show this scene, and we know we got to get to this scene, but just how we get there. Like, there's times where Anastasia will say one thing in one scene, in the very next scene, she's acting completely contrary to what she just said. Like, I'm not going to allow this. In the very next scene, she's totally allowing
allowing it.
It's like,
Right.
I can understand people change their mind, but there was nothing connecting it to make me understand what was going on in her head.
Right.
So that's all screenplay stuff. That was just...
Yes.
She was a good actor in the film. The screenplay was really weak. I think some of the scenes in the film were really good, but I'm imagining there were probably also pretty good scenes
Really
in the book,
good
too.
or good?
I think there was one really good scene.
Was it at the conference table?
Yes.
Okay.
That was a
I
great
enjoyed
scene.
that scene,
That was a
too.
great
Might have
scene.
been the best part of the movie.
I did enjoy the
Not only
conference
because I think
table.
they were able to say, you know what, this is a tongue-in-cheek movie to
Mm-hmm.
some degree. Let's have fun with it. Even the score was kind of whimsical, a little more funny.
Danny Elfman scored this movie. Did
Danny
you see
Elfman.
that?
Mm-hmm.
Danny Elfman scores like half the films in Hollywood right now, so don't
Yeah.
take a lot to that. I think he's doing anything for a paycheck.
He's
these
making
days.
his retirement.
He's the Samuel L.
Well-
Jackson of the music.
He is. Right.
Yes.
But I mean, that conference room scene with the contract negotiation was funny.
Yeah.
And the
It was well made, well acted on her behalf.
And
And
it
it
made
served-
sense in
it
the
made
movie.
sense. It served the purpose.
Exactly. It worked.
They're finally
So-
talking about it.
I like
Right.
that scene.
Yeah.
I actually remember saying that was a really good scene. I enjoyed that.
I'll agree that, I think we're all in agreement that scene was probably the best of the movie. But there again, I can nail down that the screenplay, I guess, is what I have a problem with, because there's some times in that, or the editing, where she says some things. They're talking about the contract. They're talking about all the stuff that she has to do, or, all that stuff. And she mentions one or two things, and it's like she brings it up, and he says something, and then they never say, okay, and they never come to a conclusion about what they're going to do, and they just jump to something. You're like, wait, what just
I got the
happened
sense
there?
it was more like a montage of just the negotiations going on.
If it was a montage, I
Yeah.
felt like it was. There was
Yeah.
like one or two instances
Sloppy.
where it was a little
Sloppy
bit sloppy.
montage.
Yeah, because the whole point was to kind of bring you to this realization.
But, overall, I mean, I thought the film was okay. I don't really have a desire to see it again.
No.
But I'm not going to also go out and say it was bad to anybody. I mean, it is what it is. My biggest hang up, too, was with the guy playing Christian, because if this guy's supposed to be as charismatic or intimidating, that's the key word I was looking for. That first interview scene where she went in to interview him, he should have been intimidating as hell.
I was expecting
To
like
where,
a
like,
Steve Jobs type.
charismatic, but also very intimidating. Because she even went home to her roommate and it's like, well, what was it like? It's like, he was very intimidating. I'm like, really? Because he didn't seem very intimidating
Right.
to me. He seemed like a guy I went to high school with who just
So-
happens to be dressed up really nice in a suit.
So since we're going on a little bit of spoilers, obviously I don't picture you guys going and picking up the first book and reading this, but let me
No.
just tell you,
No.
it was one of my biggest pet peeves about this movie is that Christian Grey in the movie comes across as a pansy
Okay.
compared to the guy in the book.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I get it. Yeah.
The guy in the book,
That would actually make more sense of
Yes.
why we had the problems we had.
yes.
Okay.
The guy, and me too, right. That's why I had a hard time watching it, because I'm kind of like, wait, he kind of seems like he's like already fallen for her just like that.
Oh, it seemed
At
to
the-
happen pretty quick.
Right. In the very beginning of the book, I mean, the movie sticks true to the timeline. The book starts off with her talking with her roommate, going to the interview, But as we've said, she basically doesn't want to go to the interview. She's very kind of, like, this guy's not worth my time. He's rich and blah, 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 and I don't want to go. She goes there, is very uncomfortable, very awkward, and when she sees him, this guy is described as having the presence of being gorgeous, but to a fault almost, to where it's intimidating, and he's described as one of these people. And I don't know if you guys have ever met somebody like this, but when they walk in a room, it's almost like, ooh, like all eyes are on that person. They don't have to say anything. They don't have to do anything. They demand attention almost.
It's a big presence, yeah.
Yes. But because of his past, as we're starting to learn in the movie, he's very uncomfortable with that. So he almost comes across angry. Okay. But in the movie, I did not feel that way.
I didn't
I felt
either
like
at all.
he was a businessman that was just trying to
barely.
kind of be a hard ass.
And had a secret dark path. or
Right,
a
right.
secret
And,
dark secret. I mean, and for a point of reference, Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy was originally cast as Christian Grey.
Would he have been better?
Oh,
Yes.
No, don't. No, tell me exactly how you feel. Don't hold back.
Yes. I mean,
Yes,
you go from
yes,
him
and yes.
to, I mean, no offense, Janie Dornan, if you happen to be listening or fans of his, but you go from,
He's a listener to our show, I think. Our show, probably not your guys.
Probably not
Charlie, he won't be now.
Unsubscribe.
But to go from that to Jamie Dornan,
Agreed.
I was like, I don't know how they're going to pull this
He was
off.
the biggest problem with the film for me. It's just, if his character in the film was truly intimidating and commanding and all, I totally, even with the screenplay not being great, I probably would have bought the progression of all the scenes and how the storyline
right.
went. But it, not only did you have a sloppy screenplay, but when you've got such a poorly cast lead actor, I didn't
Makes it
buy
tough to
any
buy.
of it. The only thing I bought was Dakota Johnson's the things she said and acted on. But that's it. That was nothing.
He
else.
didn't seem any less awkward to me than she did, and at times I felt like she was a little more overpowering than he was.
Yeah,
and
actually, there
I didn't
was.
like that. It was kind of like I knew what the movie was supposed to be about and how it was supposed to play out, and like to me, it just felt like he was like, okay, caving. Like he was just as awkward, if not even more so, than she was, and she had the upper hand when she really had less life experience than he did. It was kind of like they switched roles at some point.
I feel like even though he's supposed to be the dominant person, she actually was the dominant person for the entire movie.
For most of the movie, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
which I didn't understand
early
because
on,
I was
so
confused about
He goes and gets her from the bar when she's drunk.
Yeah.
And he's very clear in his dialogue about how he doesn't sleep with people, doesn't sleep in the bed, and
Sleep
do all
overnight.
these things. You're right.
Yeah, like sleep beside her.
That's totally what happens the very first time.
Right.
Now, I understand, and the more I've kind of stepped back on it, I think we're supposed to get the impression that Anastasia's doing something to this guy that is different than what he's ever used to. But I got no sense of that from his performance at all. It wasn't until about halfway through the film he's like, "What are you doing to me?" type of thing. I'm like, oh, so now I'm understanding that this is supposed to be where you're actually acting different than you normally do. I had no sense of who he was normally. So that way, when he acts different with Anastasia, it makes no impact to the viewer because we don't know what he normally is like.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Where the book, you get probably, I'm sure, much more fleshed out how he normally is with his relationships.
Well, and only, because the book is written from Anna's point of view.
Okay.
The first book is.
Right. Oh, so there's no like backstory to him. It's pretty much whatever you see from her.
There is what's it called at the beginning? Epilogue?
Or prologue.
Prologue. Prologue's at the beginning, epilogue at the end. So prologue at the beginning, there is a memory of a child like scared. And he's telling a quick story about how I'm scared. Where's my mommy? And that's the prologue. Okay? And then everything after that is Anna. Now, so which makes it even more intriguing to and believable, I think, because you're not inside his head.
Right, yeah.
Okay, instead you're hearing her being like, I don't understand. What is this? That was another thing in her role in the movie. There was a lot more questioning on her part in the book. I know they had more time to do it, more time to draw it out, but there was a lot more, which to me makes sense. You're about to enter into this thing and whatnot, then I'm going to do a lot more research. I'm going to question a lot more. And there was a lot more almost of development of her and her personality, because one of the main roles in the book that she's playing is that she's looking for a job. So there's a lot of time focused on her getting a job.
And there's nothing at all spent on that.
Nothing.
In the movie.
He makes one comment about, we have a great internship program. And she was like, no thanks.
I'd rather work at the hardware store.
Right. Well, he brings that up a lot more. In the book, he brings that up a lot more. Here's a company that I own.
Well,
here's another one that I work with. You should go here. And she's very, no, Christian, stop. I don't want that.
I'm glad you mentioned about how she questioned things more in the book, because that was the thing that bugged me. If I had $1 for every time I heard her say, why won't you let me in, type of thing, like not understanding him. But then like the very next scene, she seems to totally understand him. And then the next scene, she doesn't understand him again. It's like, I would either expect more questioning or just more, I'm confused a lot more often.
Yeah.
But she was either one side or the other. And I never got a really good sense, and that's the screenplay's fault, to know how she really was feeling about it all the time. Again, another thing you get from a book you don't get from a movie.
So something I was wondering about when I was reading the book, knowing there was a movie going to be made, is that in the book there is a whole lot of email and text communication written out, and you actually see an email like written out in the book. And then again for the text or whatever it may be. Now, they did do a little bit of that where they show the text on the screen during the movie.
Right.
But there were not as many of the conversations that they had in the book, which was almost her ballsy moment, if you will. Like in the book, that was the part where she was kind of...
She didn't have to see him face to face.
She didn't have to see him face to face, right. Because she knows that every time she sees him face to face, she kind of melts to him. Because he's very intimidating and strong in the book.
Intimidating and strong, but is he charming or no?
Yeah, he's charming because he's so intense, I mean, I think I remember telling Janette that, can I just pause the thing here and just tell everybody that's listening, Alan, that is on Footcandle, that's sitting beside me, is my brother, which makes this incredibly weird. So all right. So
It's all for the name of the show. Just
I know. Focus. Chick chat. So when you're reading the book, and there's this guy who is so intense, and he does say the right things, but he's also a little like strong-willed about it, to where you don't have to think for yourself.
Yeah.
He makes the decisions for you. He takes you here. He's a little forceful sometimes, not physically, but like, no. And you're going to meet me here, and you're going to have dinner now. You're going to eat now. You're going to do this. I'm not saying I want that in my life, but the fact I was reading it, it was intriguing because I don't know people like that.
Right.
He was such a... Oh my gosh! Like who? I want to find out what's next.
Like if you imagine him as Charlie Hunnam, yes,
because
like,
I was at that time.
Jamie Dornan just came across as stalkerish.
Yes.
Well, the problem is, I get it. And I actually think there was there was a line of dialogue late in the film that's kind of like, I think she even asked, "Why would anybody do this?" And he's like, "Well, you don't have to think. You just do." And at that point, I'm like, that's really. I wish the movie spent more time looking at that, because I even told Suzanne, I'm like, hell, that's kind of. Sounds kind of nice, actually. In my whole life, I mean,
she's taking notes. Like,
let me just tell me what to do. I mean,
well, and what he tries to play it off to her as well as, like you're taken care of.
Yeah,
I'm taking care of you in that sense.
I wish the movie explored that more.
Yeah,
and it just didn't, because really the only time we see him being controlling is when they go to
the romper room.
No, not even that. I'm talking about like just in normal life. When they go to the dinner together at his family's house, and she makes the mention about going
to Georgia,
and he's like, "No, you're not going to do that." But even that wasn't really that forceful.
Wasn't
that was really
intimidating,
weak.
right?
So there was no intimidation there at all.
Where in the book, there are things like where he's so strong, especially around his family, because they know him well enough. Because his family does play a big part, especially in the next two books, where. They're always like, oh, Christian's so grumpy. Like, that we know this about him. They expect it, to where when he heard about Georgia in the book, he like slams his hand down on the table, stands up, storms off,
so
makes a strong scene that like Christian's pissed.
See, and we got nothing of that in the film.
Yeah, why wouldn't they do that?
Right.
Instead, he bit his lip, and then when they got outside, that's when he started to get upset about it.
Yeah.
But he still didn't really get angry, forceful. He was really like, why didn't you tell me about that?
But that's another thing about him in the book, is that because he's a businessman, or this is what they make you to lend you to believe, is that because he's a businessman and classy and comes from a well-to-do upbringing, they said he was adopted after his adoption, his family, that he's got that class about him that he doesn't make a scene. When he was at the graduation with people, obviously he does not know.
Yeah.
And the roommate says, "Oh, well, this is Anna's boyfriend." He could have easily, clammed up or whatever, but he's very nice to meet you. I'm Mr. Gray. I'm blah, 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 or Christian Gray. Nice to meet you, to her dad.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like he can turn on that charm. He can be super sly about it, I guess, is the way. But
in the movie, he introduced himself as the boyfriend, didn't he?
Yes.
It wasn't the roommate,
right? But in the movie, I'm trying to say, they're like showing that he can play into people without getting fussy about something. I guess his family knows that he gets fussy, but nobody else does.
See, this movie for me was completely different, because I felt the whole time I was just watching a power struggle, like who can gain the upper hand. Because when she kept, as long as she didn't sign that contract and she was walking away, he was drawn to her. He kept coming to her. As soon as she relented a little bit, like when he showed up at her apartment and she was kind of like, okay, and he left after he realized, okay, now I've got the upper hand, and then she's crying. Or when she's in Georgia and he says, don't worry about who I'm having dinner with, and then she's crying again. I'm like, she's crying because she lost the upper hand, not because she's all upset about it.
I can see that.
I had control. I've lost it. Now I'm the giddy little girl who's chasing. I don't want to chase. I want to be chased. And I felt like the whole time they were both trying to gain that upper hand on each other.
That's interesting. Yeah,
I guess that's why
at
first when I was watching it, now I'm listening to the conversation, I may be compelled to go read the book. But that's why I was like, I am not reading this book. This is the worst concept ever.
No.
Like, it's this power struggle movie with a little red room thrown in the middle of it to make it interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Alan and Chris here with an exciting announcement about something coming to the Western North Carolina area later this year. It's the first ever Footcandle Film Festival.
That's right, an honest-to-goodness film festival that's happening September 25th through the 27th at the Salt Block in Hickory, North Carolina. Films are being submitted from all over the world to be considered.
Do you or someone you know have a film that you'd like to submit? Visit footcandle.org and follow the link to the festival for instructions.
Stay tuned later in the year as we announce our choices and start selling tickets.
Visit footcandle.org for more information. We'll see you in September. Can I ask about the ending?
Please, because I've got a question too.
Because I liked the fact that it ended the way it did.
Really?
The way it began.
Oh, yeah.
It ended the way it began.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I liked the ending because I actually liked
nuts.
that. I was really scared that they were going to go with some, let's give a nice wrap up ending to this thing. And the fact that it was just you know what? Nope, I'm done. Goodbye.
Well, that's
I
because
was
there's two
okay
more
with
movies.
that. I was okay with that.
I thought the ending was dumb. I hated
Really?
the ending. Yeah.
I thought it worked for me. But my question is that the way it ended in the book?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, because there's two more books.
Well, I know there are two more
Right,
books,
but no, that really is how the first book ends.
That is-
And in fact, after I saw the movie, I went back on my iPad and I pulled up the books because it had been a while since I read them, but I wanted to make sure. I went to like the last 6 pages of the first book, glanced over those just to make sure I was remembering everything right, and then read like the first 6 pages of the second book again to make sure I was right. And yeah, that's right. That's exactly how it was.
See,
How did you
I
feel
actually
about that?
admired that they
like
stuck
it.
to it.
Yeah.
I actually admired they stuck to a very abrupt, kind of unsatisfying ending in a way. Now, here's another question I've got that has to do with the whole film, spoiler-wise. So the whole deal with Christian and his weirdness.
He's actually an alien, right?
Yes, right.
His mommy issues.
Well, mommy, family issues, whatever it is that kind of got him where he is.
Yep.
You know,
Made him the
they
man
were
he is
very
today.
high-level passing comments about it in the movie. Did it go into deeper depth of the book, or is it kind of meant to be that that's what the sequel books are supposed to dig more into?
It was pretty high level, skimming the surface in the book, as the first book as well. Now, I will say that I felt like after reading all 3, the first book was the weakest.
Really? Interesting.
The
So
first
the other
book-
books go into more detail about him. Are they all about him?
Yes.
In her, the
yes.
two of them?
Yes.
Okay.
But there's actually like a plot, like a side stories, if you will, along. It's not just about will Anna sign the contract or not. It is. There's other things
that
that
could have been
happen
interesting,
into more books. I think that the books were poorly written, yet easy to read, and that's why so many people read them.
Yeah.
And so I kind of felt like the movie was being made that way as well.
Well, and I didn't like. And you're talking about the fact of Mrs. Robinson, his whatever for the sake
She
of
refers to him as Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah, he was abused as a child for all intents
Right.
and purposes.
Yes.
Although he doesn't look at it that way, he was abused as a minor child by an
Right.
older woman,
Yeah.
taken advantage of.
Yep.
That bothered me that it wasn't addressed more. I understand it wasn't addressed in the book, but in the movie, for those people who aren't going to read the full series, aren't going to watch any more of the movies, it was kind of just thrown in there like, oh yeah, this happened. And I think that bothered me that there was that whole undertone, and Anna or whatever her name is, didn't question it more. No more discussion was brought up about it, because
Yeah, I can
that's
see
really
that.
like that's a big
Now, is it?
Yeah, it's
big
a little
dark
shocking.
thing. It's
Yeah.
really
Is that
dark.
the same woman? Yeah. Okay. So
We
don't
never
actually
see
see
Mrs.
her.
Robinson. No,
But he
just-
can-
not
he
went
gets-
to dinner
but
with
he
her.
goes to. But he still visits her. It's not like
he says they're still friends,
Right,
And
okay.
she's still someone he
confides.
She was the
in.
reason he showed up in Georgia, basically, because she's like, well, how did your dinner go with Mrs. Robinson, and what did she tell you? And he said, well, I'm here, aren't I? Basically saying she told him to go.
Oh my gosh, I'm dying to tell you guys so much about what happens.
Well, I was confused by the ending, and the way there again, I guess spoilers are off,
Right.
But the end of the movie, he basically they're in romper room, red room, whatever they call that, and she's like, okay,
Punishment.
Take the punishment.
yeah.
Yes.
She's like, I'm gonna beat you with a belt, and she's like, have at it. So he's like, I'm gonna beat you. And he
He
does
doesn't
it.
use the word beat.
Okay.
I'm going to punish you.
I'm
Does
going to
not punish you.
And he hits her with a belt, and then like after this, she's like mad,
Right.
and I'm like,
No, I totally get it.
You
No,
get it? I was
don't.
so annoyed.
And I
I'll tell
don't
you
get
why.
it. And
I was so
I
annoyed.
don't get it in a bad way because I'm just like, the whole movie if you're going to do kind of like a Twilight reference, if you're going to be team whatever the vampire's name was, or team
Edward.
whatever the werewolf's name was.
Jacob.
Okay, so this whole movie, my wife and I are like commenting back and forth, like, okay, he's an idiot. She's just having fun. You say, oh, he's rich. I see why she's attracted to him. Sure, take him for his money. And at the end of the movie, we're totally Team Gray or Team Christian as opposed to Team Steele, because we're like, actually feel sorry for him, because I think he's like, dude, you told me to do this. I did it.
I was team each other alone. That was my team. I just
Here's the way I take it.
I was just...
She wants to know what he is truly capable of, because there's a way he wants to treat the women in his relationship that he's not treating her. She knows that. She knows there's a part of it holding back, and she's like, listen, just do what you would normally do, because she needs to know that side of him. When she sees that side of him and she experiences it, yeah, she asked for it, but she also got to fully understand what he's capable, what he does in relationships, and that's what really pushed her over the edge. Is what I got from it.
She's an idiot because it's explained to her that you have safe words of yellow and red.
There's going to be pain involved.
And at any part, yeah, exactly. At any part, like, okay, after lashing two with the belt, she could have said, yellow. I get what you're doing.
And I'm just like, it wasn't that she was upset because she was hurt physically. It was more of okay, so that's who this guy really is. I know now, and I'm ready to get away from it.
And I'm saying I understand that, and I thought for that reason, I thought she was an idiot, and I actually felt sorry for him, which I would have never imagined.
Because she asked for it. He wasn't going to do it. He just says, I should punish you, and she says,
but it's kind of like knowing a side of your spouse that you're like, there's a dark side of your spouse, and you don't know what it is, but
like
you kind of feel like you need to know. But yet you want to know what it is because you want to know who you're getting connected with. But once you see it, we're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's ugly. I don't want any part of that. It's
no. But I get Chris's point, because it was almost like that's not who he is with her. But she forced his hand and said, I want to know who you are when you're not with me. So I get it. It was almost like...
But it's not. That's the thing. It is not about who he is or is not with her or anybody else. That's the thing. There are two forms of being a submissive. Okay,
this conversation is getting really interesting.
I know, right? There's the pleasurable
I'm taking
one
notes. Hold on.
For the red room, essentially the pleasure one, where he basically says, when he's explaining to this, when she's like, why would anyone want to do this? And he's like, for pleasure. He's like, for you and for me, because obviously he's the one doing the chaining up and the tying her up and all that stuff. She's the one that's actually feeling it. So there's two forms of pleasure. He's trying to explain, hey, I get pleasure from this, whether you think I do or don't. Okay. Then there's punishment. Okay. That comes in forms of spankings, essentially. Okay. So punishment is where he talks about, like, whenever he found out about Georgia and he was like, I'm about to take you across my knee. Okay. Again, in the book, he says that a lot in the sense of he refers to palm twitching mad. Okay. Palm twitching mad. Because he's saying, that is not sexual, really. That is me being your dominant. That's me setting these boundaries. Punishment is. Pleasure may come across to people on the outside as stuff in the red room, but that's more the fun part for them. So she's saying, hey, she'd already been in the red room 3 times or whatever by the time the end of the movie came, right? She'd already gone through all that stuff. She'd already gone through that stuff. She was in there. She was fine. She kind of enjoyed it, It was, and he even asked her that, you're okay with some of the stuff. You liked being tied up and whatnot. And she was like, yeah, I do. It was, she had never been punished. She had never pissed him off, essentially. And as a submissive, if she would sign the contract, she would have to be punished anytime she did something wrong. Okay? And that was in the contract, and she knew that. So since she has not signed the contract, she's saying, all right, well then show me. Show me how bad is this going to get if I sign this contract? Because once she signs it, she knows she can't, she could say red and yellow, but really she has to bend over.
I think if,
for lack of better terms.
I think if maybe
this is so awkward.
And I think maybe if the movie had communicated that a little bit more about some of those details, maybe I would have understood her behavior. But I was like, Yeah, I was confused.
I saw it as if I'm going to go any further in this relationship, I want to know what you're like at your worst. Because in a way, I kind of need to know.
Well, that's what she's saying.
Before
Before
I
I sign
the
this
contract.
contract,
Yeah.
I want to know how bad
And
is
again,
it gonna
I
be?
equate it to like a marriage. I mean, you don't want to find out that you don't want to be knowing that there's this whole dark side to your spouse. But you know what? I don't care about it. I don't want to see it. We're still going to get married. No, you kind of need to know what you're getting into just in case. That's her way of saying, all right, I want to find out. And it's not a red-yellow situation where she's hurt or upset. It's that, okay, I'm realizing that this is actually kind of sadistic.
Yeah,
and I'm
he's
kind of done with it.
capable of this.
And I'm
thinking
kind of
that.
done with it.
Now,
So.
that's bringing up. That's why I wanted to ask you guys, based on that final look, when he's actually giving the punishment, okay, Christian has this look on his face. I can't tell if it's, and he almost keeps doing these big sighs, like sigh with deep chest breathing. I don't know. I couldn't tell if he was doing this if he was given that look because he was almost getting this release. Like he gets a release from doing this punishment. Or was he almost in pain because he was doing this to her?
I got that.
He was in pain.
I think that would be the latter one, and that's why I was even more irritated with how the movie ended, because it's like he wasn't enjoying it, but he was doing what she said she was okay with, and then he's done, and it's not like he's like jumping up like,
Oh, yeah.
He went to
I feel
comfort her,
great.
and that's what she said. Don't touch me.
And he's
Right.
like,
He's
okay.
confused at that point. Like you asked me to do this.
Right.
Like
Right.
he's
Yeah.
very confused.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I will tell you that at the very beginning of the next book, I mean, it is addressed. Why didn't you say red or yellow?
Oh,
Okay, good.
Yeah, it is.
Well, here's then I guess an issue I've got with
Are
the
they
film.
interchangeable or they're like
Yellow means I'm getting there, and red
like,
means
keep going?
halt.
Okay.
Orange,
like
is,
stoplights.
orange is like, yeah.
I mean, it's not that bad, but it could be worse.
I forget. Is it yellow, red, or orange?
Right. Just start screaming
I needed
colors.
the color wheel hanging over the bed there so to make sure.
Alan, you'd be in big trouble because you're colorblind.
I know, really. I'm like, oh, whatever that color is right there.
Any color.
color. So I guess that's an issue I've got with the film then too, is because it sounds like in a way, it's not meant to be a completely standalone movie. In a way, it does. I mean, I hate saying it's a cliffhanger because it's not a cliffhanger, but it does leave you with a sense of, well, we know there's another book and there's going to be another movie. So that's why it ending the way it did kind of abruptly,
Right.
people are okay with it. Although if you had no desire to see the rest of the films or read the books or whatever, it is one of those endings that's like, I liked it, but yet I can see how people would be a little frustrated
Like,
too,
Yeah. Sure.
So, I'll just say I thought the film was better than I expected. I don't think it was a bad movie. I think it was a bad screenplay. I'll definitely give it that. And I think a bad lead actor, but the film looked good. Cinematography I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
Lead actress was really good.
yeah.
So
The music, I had an issue with the music because
Really?
it fluctuated. I mean, I liked it when it did more of the older jazz type music, and then when it did the instrumental music, I thought it was good. When it wove in like the R&B pop stuff, it lost me. It's like, pick one musical style to carry me through the film. Don't do this.
It's
Now we're going to
different
play
Okay, well-
latest Rihanna song, and then we're going to go back to this old jazz standard. Then we're going to do this R&B pop song, and then we're just
Again,
I wanted a style.
that was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Okay.
Was the music, probably because of the book. Music plays a huge part in the book, huge
Yeah.
part, to where Christian, as we saw, plays piano, was classically trained.
But plays
Okay.
it naked?
He was not
wasn't
naked.
naked. She
wasn't
was.
naked?
She was naked.
Okay.
Not him. Not him.
Were
We're
you
all
paying
like,
attention,
whoa,
Chris?
hey.
Charlie Hunnam.
I have that in my notes right here. He had pants on at the piano.
Every time at the
Come on.
He is OCD. Let's keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
right.
Yes. So he plays piano classically, wherever. Well, when they get in any of his cars or whatnot, and iPods and computers and things like that, music is always talked about because it's always a very different form of music.
Okay.
He also talks a lot in the book. He'll play a song like while they're dancing, which they danced, in the movie, while they're dancing, or while they are getting dressed, or while they're in the shower, whatever it may be. They play it, and she asks about it a lot because she doesn't know a lot of it. So he says, "Oh, I like this one because of this, this, this." Well, we also find out later that certain submissives have made playlists, and it
They made them
refers
a
to things.
mixtape.
Right. So there's actually a line which I just think is hilarious where Anna says to Christian, she's looking through the playlist, and she was like, "Why does this girl have Crazy in Love on the playlist?" And he was like, and she was like, "No, because you're crazy." I mean, it's they imply through these playlists about different submissives, and
I would have
kind of
enjoyed the
getting to that.
music, the use of music in the film more if they acknowledged it as being
Exactly.
Was it didactic music, meaning it's actually something they're listening to on their
Yes.
iPad. They select. There's a reason for it. The way it's done in the movie is it's just background soundtrack,
Right.
And it doesn't. It just jumped around so much, and every time it went to like I said, some poppy R&B song, it was like. It almost felt like there was like canned music. We just need to pipe in something kind of sexy and kind of romantic
Yeah.
and pipe it in there. If it had tied it more to the story, like the book did, I would have appreciated the music a lot more.
Yeah.
So do we
There's-
get into why the other submissives left? Ever?
Yeah,
all
I mean,
dead.
briefly.
He killed them all.
Are their bodies?
They're closet in the red room. The red room doesn't smell very good.
It's
not-
red
and
for
it's
a
not
reason.
just
It covers
sweat.
up the blood.
Yeah.
It's it is briefly touched on. Some of it's just not as. I mean, some of it's like some people just were done. I mean, it was the contract's up. They part ways.
They
kind
opted
of
not to
thing.
renew.
Right. Yes.
Is this up for auto renew or no?
Yeah, I mean, there are some.
Oh,
like,
I forgot to to opt out of the auto renew. Crap! I'm in this for another year now.
All
All
right.
right. Remind me when my 30 days is
Yeah,
up.
someone set an alarm. Yeah, but no, it is. It's briefly touched on. She does ask, like, where are they now? What happened? Why are they not? Why have you had so many, or whatever it may be?
I just wonder why he was drawn to her because, I mean, as we mentioned, that's the other unbelievable part of the movie to me.
Yeah.
She's very inexperienced. So she goes from being extremely inexperienced to red room.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
no, that's not going to
It didn't
happen.
take
Yeah,
me long.
yeah.
Like 24 hours or so. So
Like, she's like, oh, you've got this red room? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, even her childish, what do you have, like Xbox in there or something? Like, really?
Right,
Behind
right.
locked doors?
Yeah.
I see. I bought that up to the point where I bought her character completely up to the point where it became this whole
Sexual.
I like it, I don't like it.
Right.
Why are you doing this to me? Why won't you let me in? When it got to be that back and forth, it didn't work as well. But up to that point, I thought her character was really good. Now, what he saw in her, I'm not really sure. I still don't understand what she saw in him. So I mean, it's like
No,
it was on both
neither do
sides
I.
there. You got to have two characters where there's real chemistry, and you can just feel that they are just gravitating together. If they had that in this movie and had that more intimidating character like in the book, I think it could have actually been a pretty
Yeah.
good movie. So
Well, and again, touching on details of it, Taylor, who is the driver, bodyguard, whatever you may call him. Who is he? He's been in
He's the redhead in the unit. I don't,
on the unit. That's
Yeah.
the show that he actually plays on TV. Anyway,
very macho. He could
yeah.
have played him.
Taylor is a huge part in the book and continues to be obviously more in the second and third books. The family members, you get a lot more detail on. Elliot, the brother.
so that
Mia,
really
the
is his
sister.
brother.
Yeah, and does the brother hook up with the roommate that didn't
In the book?
Yeah,
Yeah.
really.
That was a little confusing. I know they
Yes.
called him brother, but I didn't know if
I
like
thought he was just he was
Yeah,
he was really a bodyguard.
right.
No,
or something,
and that's the
yeah.
thing is in the book, you know a lot more about it. When they actually go to the club,
Yeah,
Elliot, was with him because he even says, Elliot sat on the dance floor with your roommate to distract her or whatever.
right.
He tells a little bit more about who Elliot is, why he's there helping, like why is he visiting him because he doesn't live with him, who Elliot is. And then Elliot actually, when they get caught in the apartment the next morning, Elliot talks a little bit to Anna and they, Christian's very uncomfortable around him because Elliot's so cool, if you will. Elliot's the fun one. Elliot's the lighthearted one. He's kind of the laid back guy. And
a piece of burnt toast would be the fun one next to Jamie Dornan. So,
Elliot
Right.
is the one that says to the roommate, he says, "Laters, baby." Right? And they breezed over that real fast in the movie. And then Christian starts copying him, right?
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
Actually,
and
my wife noticed that, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Is that because he's so odd that he has to pick up with his cool brothers?" And I was like, "I guess."
in the
I just thought it
book,
sounded weird.
what I loved in the
I found
book
it
was
weird,
that Elliot says it, and both the girls are kind of like, like he's so cute, Anna and the roommate. And I think Christian picks up on it. And so later, Christian tries to say it, and he almost stutters when he says it because it's just not normal
Not a
for
natural
him.
thing for him to say.
Yep. And so
God, so
Anna
you-
thinks that's cute.
he's so much more an interesting character in the book.
Right.
That's
Oh,
what
absolutely.
that's what actually is making me not like this movie more and more as we talk because You had an opportunity to make such a really deep, interesting
Yes.
character, and they totally botched it.
Yes.
Well, and I
Yes.
even mentioned to Mary-Margaret, because I was asking her about the book, the dialogue in the movie, a lot of it bothered me so much. It just felt like I'd seen it in other movies, and it was kind of like,
Yeah, I can
grab
see
a piece from this movie, I'm going to put it here. Like, even the cheesy line of, I'm 50 Shades of Crazy. Really?
He does
That
say
was
that
an
in the
eye
book.
roller.
He does say that
I mean,
in the book.
I know, but just on a movie screen, it just seems kind of like he's leaning down, like, I'm almost 50 Shades of Crazy.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, I just felt like I heard all the dialogue before.
Why don't you just let me in?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like every movie.
I don't make love.
Every romantic
Right.
relationship,
Right,
yeah.
I want to know if this line of dialogue was in there because this made me actually stop the Apple TV from playing the movie back, and I jumped up and grabbed a pen and a piece of paper because I wanted to remember the dialogue because it was so awesome.
Oh, I hope it's good.
Christian, I would like to bite that lip. Anna, I think I'd like that too. Christian, I'm not going to touch you until I have your written consent. And that was it. And I was like, what? Like, who would say that? Now, granted, the way he delivers those lines, maybe a better actor could have convinced me that that was somewhat like normal or something. But I was just like, what? Like, the dialogue was just
I
completely
think if he had been the
ridiculous.
character from the book on screen, that would have played off so much
I would like to
more.
bite that lip. Like, coming out of the blue, I'm like, dude, what?
Yeah, but if
And, like,
someone
hurry-
says to me without your written consent, I'd be like, say, what?
Yeah, I'd be like, wait, written what? What are you talking about?
Oh, look at the time. I gotta go.
Don't.
There's a
thing.
cab. I got an Uber waiting for me outside.
So
man.
to answer you, yes, they do say that.
Okay.
But here's the difference. In the book, Christian gets almost forceful and fatherly about the whole lip biting thing. Lip biting thing is brought up a lot.
Oh, really?
He brings
Okay.
it up a lot because she does it as a habit. You learn that that's her nervous habit, right?
Okay.
And he will like forcefully tell her, "Stop biting your lip now." You know, and it's to show her like, A, I've told you to not do that. And B, it turns me on, so quit.
Huh.
You know? And just for reference, because that's right before the elevator.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm
Okay.
talking about? When he says the
Yeah.
elevator, okay, the elevator plays a big part in the whole series as well, because every time they're in the elevator, it's like, ooh, what's going to happen, right? Because the very first time in the elevator together was when he basically said, F the paperwork.
And
Right?
that's when they first kissed.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Now, when reading the book, that is what made me keep reading all three books. That elevator scene, because it was so intense the way it was written that you could feel through the pages, you could feel like how torn he was almost. You know, just by their language and all, and her thoughts in her head or whatnot.
Okay.
I think this is the longest we've talked about a single film, Chris.
Hey, well, it is this very special episode.
This
It is a
true.
very special bonus size episode.
Yeah.
I think I'll read it now,
You know-
but I'm going to take out Jamie Dornan and put in Charlie Hunnam.
See,
in
see, you got to picture who you want to picture in there because
I got it.
I really, really would be interested to hear like somebody that now goes and reads it. So the other Chick Chat listeners know Janette doesn't care about spoilers. Like Janette, you can tell her anything and she'll be like, "I'll still watch it." So
Rosebud's a sled.
yeah, so she will go and read the book, and I'm
Planet of the Apes
interested
is
to
really
hear.
Earth.
Kevin Spacey is Kyler Sose.
right? The kid, dang it! Yeah, Bruce Willis was dead
He's
the whole
dead.
time.
The whole time. He's dead. The whole time. We're ruining people out there right now. It's like, no!
Turning it off. What? So anyway, I really appreciate all of you watching it and indulging us. All
Oh, yeah.
this, me,
Well, I mean,
whatever. But
it
like
could have
you
been
said,
worse.
this thing made a lot of money.
But
Absolutely.
it didn't make as much as people expected.
Really?
That is,
Really?
no,
Is that
truly.
so? Okay.
It had a huge opening weekend, and then it dropped dramatically second weekend on because the reviews were really bad.
People
I mean,
started
people were
talking
like,
about it.
okay, this is not anywhere as good as the book or
Right.
whatever. It made enough money to obviously warrant a sequel and all, but
Yes.
it did not go gangbusters like everybody expected it to.
And they're slated
So,
for 2017 is going to be
I don't know.
the sequel.
That's what I'm hearing too. So this was all, the books were around 2011, 2012 that they came out. 2012, E.L. James, the author,
Okay.
was the world's top-selling author. First book she's ever written. She was listed in 2012 as one of the 100 most influential people in the world in Time magazine.
Wow.
Chris, you actually asked me about this the other day, about starting out as a Twilight fan fiction piece.
I'd heard something about how.
And that is true.
Okay. Did that mean that their names were actually... What does that mean?
It says the 50 Shades of Grey books originally started out as an episodic Twilight fan fiction entitled Master of the Universe. Before being completely rewritten as an original piece.
So maybe like...
I think it's like a blog.
So the lead character was He-Man.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Was the lead character
Shira was the lead.
Was the lead character like a vampire or something? So it
I
was
don't
like
know. That I don't know.
Weird.
But I do know that her original pen name was Snow Queen's Ice Dragon.
Nice.
Oh.
Right.
That was the one I was
What?
reading.
She's awkward.
And I was talking to Mary-Margaret earlier, and I had actually read, and I wanted to make sure I read this, and she'd heard the same thing, that she's going to write this whole series again from Christian's point of view.
Huh.
Did you not hear that? Or at least one of the books from his point of view.
I did hear that. And I would strongly urge her, if she's listening, to not do that. There is, in one of the books, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3, where you do get a bit of Christian chapters in his head. Not the whole book, but chapters here and there. And I'll tell you what, it was hard to read. He's got a lot of weird stuff going on in his head.
Did they sound like computer commands?
Beep, boop, beep. They're all zeros and ones. That's all it was.
That would be hard to read.
His abuse is addressed later in more detail.
Absolutely.
I need it to be addressed at
Absolutely.
some point. Okay.
Things that are addressed later in extreme detail are her job, his family, his upbringing, and Mrs. Robinson.
And can we stop calling her that? Because she was kind of fun. You know?
She had a song written about her.
There's nothing fun about her.
Yeah. It's interesting. It will be. I mean, I will see the next movies because somebody's got to. So
And see, even the Mrs. Robinson line, throwing in from another movie, like really, I just felt like this lady watched a bunch of movies and said, you know what, I could write a book about all of this thrown together, and I can take bits and pieces of the dialogue from all these movies, and it'd be fantastic.
Do you know that Jamie Dornan was in a folk band back in the day that used to open up for KT Tunstall?
The most boring folk band ever.
Yeah, it was called Sons of Jim.
I'm Jamie Dornan.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
We're going to play some.
We're Sons of Jim.
Will you wait and see the movies, the sequels, at home, or will you brave the theater?
Well, you know, I'm torn because I have a feeling, and I'm hopeful, that I would like the second and third movies better because I liked the second and third books better.
I got you. Well, I will say that when I went to go see American Sniper, not opening weekend of American Sniper, but opening weekend of 50 Shades of Grey, as I was walking up to the theater to buy my ticket, a limo pulled up, out stepped a guy, clearly dressed to the nines, and got a lady out of the cab. And I'm like, get out. They were like cosplaying 50 Shades of Grey.
That's
really
weird.
Absolutely. And I was like, okay, so if you don't want to be around those people, maybe not go opening week.
I don't want to be around that guy. I don't know those other people.
But I was like, I
that
can't
theater
believe
altogether
this
now.
I can't believe this is happening. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Well, in case anybody's wondering out there, Christian and Anna are both on Twitter. And you can follow them at Christian T. Gray and Anna R. Steele. Okay, lots of things have happened like that. I mean, this thing has become like a phenomenon. You know, it really has. There's a hotel in the Lake District, which is in the UK Ireland border. Okay, that have replaced all of their hotel Bibles with 50 Shades of Grey.
No.
Yep.
Nice.
Just letting you know.
That just does not seem right.
Well, you know, Jamie Dornan is not American,
right?
Yeah. So I think that's maybe up in his country, his land, his people.
Dornan land.
His people.
Dornan land.
Yeah. Dornan just makes him sound boring, right?
Everybody's very low charisma.
I will throw this out there as kind of a benefit. I guess to the books, assuming the movies didn't change this, I was legitimately surprised that it didn't take place in New York City and New York State. Instead, it was Seattle.
But it started in Twilight, right? So that's where Twilight takes place.
Maybe.
Okay, maybe that's why.
I still haven't seen any of the Twilight movies.
You know,
Really?
They're better than this one.
Really?
Yeah.
But stereotypically, you know, when you think of big, rich dudes and flying around in helicopters and
Sure.
skyscrapers, you think, you know, stereotypically that would be New York. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. It's
Yeah,
Seattle.
Seattle and Georgia.
Right. Well,
Right.
yeah.
Which is weird. Right.
Interesting
Yeah.
locations.
So it's
Which
it's,
was
I
also
think
Twilight,
we've all-
right? No, that was Florida.
Florida. Yeah.
Man,
but I do
that's
think
interesting,
we've all.
Jeanette. See, she's read Twilight stuff, so she knows.
I think
do
we've
read.
all been 3 of the readers minus Alan. I think we've all kind of. I was surprised by this because I actually heard from Chris and Alan both that the movie did not suck.
Yes,
Which is
I can honestly say I did not think the movie sucked.
okay. I kind of did.
It was a movie.
And you kind of did too.
I'm not going to watch it again, but
You're
I'll watch
the
the other.
chicks
But I'll
on
watch the
Chicks
other
Chris and
two.
I actually liked it better than the two of you.
Maybe.
I think
Wow.
maybe if I think Janette.
Well, you guys like the actress.
See,
I actually may have liked it best of all four of you.
I think
which
Janette
is crazy.
and I may be on the
Crazy
same page,
town.
but I think if I'd have known the material, then I would have been as irritated as Mary-Margaret.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well,
I'm
maybe
more.
that's, I
I'm
gave
more.
it a pass. 'Cause I
I'm
was
more
like,
disappointed in the film after hearing you talk about the book than I was before I heard about that. So,
Yeah. Well, it's a super easy read if anybody needs a beach read this summer or something else. Meh.
I'm good.
Well, we know that, Alan. I wasn't talking to you.
They might have it on audiobook.
Oh,
That's
no.
still too
They
much
do have it
processing.
on audiobook, and I actually have a friend who got the audiobook and listened to it with her mom and her sister riding to the beach.
Nice.
She said all of them are looking out the side windows the entire time they're driving. I can't focus, can't pay attention.
I don't do audiobooks, and I don't encourage anybody else out there either to do them because there's so much good audio content to download on the Mesh that if you are going on a long driving trip, there's no excuse to not have something to listen to. You don't need a 12-hour book. You need 45-minute podcast discussions to
Of a
download. Like this
review
one.
of
Like this
you
one.
need reviews of 50 Shades
Actually,
of
I
Grey.
think this review has gone on as long as the movie is. So,
Hey, yet more interesting.
I'll give it that. I will give it that, definitely. So.
Minus the whips. Hey.
Well, Mary-Margaret,
All right.
Jeanette, thanks for having us.
Hey,
We
well,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for being here
Thanks
and for
the,
agreeing to
the
do it.
wine and the cheese assortment. That was really nice to
Well,
have
this
out
is
here
what we
for
do
us. And
on Chick Chat.
This is
It's
really
girly
cool.
stuff, right?
Very nice.
The lights are turned down low. We've got pink
Yes.
bulbs and everything.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, we really appreciate it. Jeanette, thank you again for coming on and for taking the time to watch the movie. Hopefully we'll report back after maybe the second one and find out if you watch or read the book.
Okay.
Okay, just let us know. No
right.
pressure. All right, so you've been listening to Chick Chat with special guest from Footcandle.
Bye.
Yes, who I don't know will be joining us again anytime soon, but it was fun to have him on here. Again, thank you for tuning in. You can find out more about The Mesh and all of its shows at www.themesh.tv. We do have a voicemail line, 828-619-0048. Call in and tell us if you thought the movie was good, bad, or ugly. We have an email that you can write in and tell us the same thing, info@themesh.tv. And as always, please find us on Facebook and send some love on there. But until next time, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.